Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story: Trump's message to China: tariffs could get sky high or be nothing at all. The deciding factor: whether Beijing is willing to come to the table and make a deal.
We have one very big power over China, and that's tariffs. And they don't want them, and I'd rather not have to use it.
The CIA has a new director. The Senate has confirmed China hawk John Ratcliffe to lead the spy agency. And Russia says it wants to start talks to reduce nuclear weapons as soon as possible. This after Trump said he wants to work toward denuclearization. President Trump said he would rather not impose tariffs on China, but referred to the option as a tremendous power. He suggested his tariff threats also applied to Russia if it doesn't make an effort to settle the war with Ukraine as soon as possible. Here's the president speaking with Fox's Sean Hannity in the Oval Office on Wednesday.
We have one very big power over China, and that's tariffs. And they don't want them, and I'd rather not have to use it. But it's a tremendous power over China. China gets a lot of its money from the United States. They use that money to build a military. Isn't it crazy?
Trump says he's considering a 10% tariff for all Chinese goods starting February 1st. He also urged China to hand over half of TikTok's ownership to the U.S. or face a whopping 100% tariff. Exports are one of the three pillar industries that drive China's economy. According to the latest data from 2023, exports make up roughly 19% of Chinese GDP. What's more, President Trump is urging China to use its influence on Russia. Trump said Thursday that he called the Chinese Communist Party leader, requesting that he help the U.S. end the war in Ukraine. In response, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman said on Friday that, quote, dialogue and negotiation is the only viable way to end the war. She also repeated an earlier remark, saying there are no winners in a trade war. Besides reaching out to China, Trump is also urging Russia to work with Washington and settle the war soon. The president said one major reason behind the urgency is because too many people have died in the conflict.
Will it be a negotiated settlement, and will you lead the negotiations?
Well, I hope so. And I put out a truth today that's really strong, and I mean it. And if they don't do that, I'm going to put massive
Explain. If
tariffs.
they don't do what?
If they don't settle this war soon, like almost immediately, I'm going to put massive tariffs on Russia and massive taxes and also big sanctions. And I don't want to do that.
Beyond the war, Trump also said he's confident he'll be able to negotiate with China on the Taiwan issue. The island holds strategic value to the U.S.'s economy and defense. The Chinese Communist Party sees Taiwan as its own territory, despite never having ruled it. CCP leader Xi Jinping has threatened that the Chinese military would be ready to invade Taiwan by 2027.
Do you think that you can prevent Xi from his territorial desire to take Taiwan? Can you make a deal with him on making more fair trade practices? Because I know you.
No, I can do that because we have something that they want. We have with a pot of gold.
The U.S. is working to keep its upper hand in the artificial intelligence competition with China. To that end, President Trump approved an energy emergency declaration on Monday, signing it greenlights power stations that will provide enough energy to run AI centers.
We're going to build electric generating facilities. They are going to build. I'm going to get them the approval. Under emergency declaration, I can get the approvals done myself without having to go through years of waiting. And the big problem is we need double the energy we currently have in the United States. Can you imagine? For AI to really be as big as we want to have it, because it's a very competitive, it'll be very competitive with China and others.
Experts say the reason training AI consumes so much energy is because of the vast amounts of data it processes. The AI sector is expected to have even higher energy demands in the coming years. But Trump's energy plan is also facing some critics. Tyson Slocum, a prominent journalist covering topics related to energy, said it could lead to higher utility costs and air pollution. China's Commerce Ministry saying Friday that it's willing to work with the U.S. to promote stable economic and trade ties. This after President Trump using tariffs as a leverage to pressure Beijing. Trump has threatened a different amount of tariffs from 10% to 100% if a TikTok deal is not reached. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the potential tariffs.
A trade war could be brewing. A spokesperson for China's Commerce Ministry warned that tariffs would be detrimental not just for the United States, but the entire world. Mary Lovely is a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics. She said this is just the beginning.
In terms of magnitude, I think it would not be an overstatement to say we ain't seen nothing yet. And this is based on, kind of the full program of tariffs that President Trump has discussed on the campaign trail.
Trump said earlier this week that his administration was discussing a 10% tariff on Chinese imports in response to the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. via Mexico and Canada. Cornell University trade policy professor Eswar Prasad said the U.S. is in a strong negotiating position. He suspects that other countries will try to strike a deal with Trump.
For the U.S. economy, exports are important, but not that important in driving growth, as is the case for most other countries. So a trade war based on tariff escalation would hurt other countries a great deal more than the U.S.
Trump has threatened tariffs on the European Union, Mexico, and Canada as well. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The Senate has confirmed China hawk John Ratcliffe as the director of the CIA. NTD's Luis Martinez has more from Capitol Hill.
Despite opposition from Democrats this Thursday, the Senate confirmed John Ratcliffe to be the next director of the CIA. Mr. Ratcliffe, during his confirmation hearings, vowed to increase the CIA's covert operations targeting Chinese Communist Party officials.
We will produce insightful, objective, all-source analysis, never allowing political or personal biases to cloud our judgment or infect our products. We will conduct covert action at the direction of the president, going places no one else can go and doing things no one else can do.
I, John Ratcliffe. Shortly after being confirmed on the Senate floor, John Ratcliffe was sworn in as the new director of the CIA. Senate Majority Leader John Thune has now teed up Pete Hegseth to be the next nominee to receive a full vote on the Senate floor. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
The CIA has tripled its budget for China-related targets. 2 weeks ago, outgoing CIA Director William Burns said the China-focused portion of the agency's budget has grown to 20% of its total funding. He added it reflects a commitment to addressing China's rapid technological advancements. He called China's tech revolution a pivotal challenge in the global power competition. Russia says it's ready to start nuclear disarmament. This comes after President Trump said that he wants to work toward cutting nuclear arms.
Trump made the comments while addressing the World Economic Forum, saying Russia and China might support reducing their own weapons capabilities. The Kremlin today said it's necessary to restart talks on disarmament as soon as possible, but it added that all nuclear capacities should be considered, not just those of the U.S. and Russia. The Kremlin said there's no way to negotiate without considering the nuclear capabilities of countries like France and the UK. Russia says it's up to the United States to start talks, noting the U.S. previously suspended substantive contact with Russia.
Trump said China has a smaller nuclear armament than the U.S., but they're going to catch up at some point over the next 4 or 5 years. Coming up, Japan underscoring America's role in keeping peace in the Indo-Pacific. Prime Minister Ishiba saying he's looking to win President Trump's commitment to keep U.S. presence close. Online fashion retailer SHEIN says no Chinese cotton is used in products sold in the U.S. This as the company faces growing controversy over where it sources its material. And why is Chinese app TikTok so addictive? And what are the concerns surrounding the app's surveillance abilities?
Today's apps are basically legal malware. They enable the developer to conduct audio, video, and physical surveillance on the end user.
More on that after the break here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Japan's Prime Minister highlighting America's importance for stability in the Indo-Pacific Friday. Prime Minister Ishiba said he's preparing to meet President Trump and win his commitment to maintain American presence in the region. That's as Japan says it's facing the most severe and complicated security environment since World War II. Take a listen.
With the balance of power in the region making a historic change, we must further deepen Japan-U.S. cooperation concretely and ensure the U.S. commitment to the region to prevent any power vacuum from destabilizing it. At the upcoming Japan-U.S. summit meeting, I would like to share my understanding of these security and economic issues with President Trump, confirm further cooperation, and raise the Japan-U.S. alliance to a higher level.
Ishiba has been seeking to meet with Trump since his election victory in November and is arranging a trip to Washington in the coming weeks. Japan's concern about a U.S. retreat from the region comes as the Chinese Communist Party's military becomes more increasingly assertive and as North Korea test fires ballistic missiles. Ishiba also wants to develop frameworks, for example, cooperation with South Korea and the Philippines and the so-called Quad that also includes Australia and India. Ishiba recently visited Indonesia and Malaysia and sent the Japanese foreign minister to China, South Korea, and the Philippines. He said his policy goals also include responses to Japan's population decline, boosting stagnant salaries, reducing the national debt, and his pet project, building disaster resilience.
Online fashion retailer SHEIN denies using Chinese cotton for products sold in the U.S., its biggest market. This comes as the company facing allegations that its products contain cotton from China's Xinjiang, where forced labor has been used in cotton production.
SHEIN has been accused of using cotton obtained from forced labor in China's Xinjiang region. The U.S.'s Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act prohibits such cotton from being used in products sold in the U.S. The controversially obtained cotton could still be used in products sold in other countries. The company only said it complies with restrictions in countries that have such laws. The statement from SHEIN comes as the company seeks to go public in the United Kingdom, and lawmakers are scrutinizing the company's practices before they decide on approval.
President Trump has given TikTok more than 2 extra months to find a new non-Chinese owner and already floated the idea of a joint venture splitting ownership 50-50 between the U.S. and China. Why is TikTok so addictive, and what are the concerns surrounding its Chinese ownership? We speak with Rex Lee, cybersecurity advisor of MySmartPrivacy, for insight. Rex Lee, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
Tiffany, thank you for having me on the show.
Now, one of the first actions President Trump took after he became president again was to extend this law that would basically allow TikTok to stay in the U.S., although he didn't explicitly say how he would kind of change the ownership, which is what the law lays out. Now, he is suggesting that, he's going to slap a 10% tariff on Chinese goods or raise it to 100% if Beijing doesn't hand over 50% of the ownership of TikTok. Speaking of ownership, the whole thing comes down to national security concerns around the Chinese ownership of ByteDance, which is a Chinese company. Talk to us about that relationship of what a Chinese company inside China is beholden to under CCP rules.
Well, under CCP rule, it's really any company. If any American company that does business in China has to answer to the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party. For instance, if Apple's selling their products and services over there, not only are they beholden to the government and the laws of China, but they also have to expose their IP of the products and services that they're selling in China as well. Any company who's doing business that is started up in China but doing business globally has to have a government member on their board of directors. And usually these members of the government are associated with the Chinese Communist Party, obviously. So, you can state the argument that, no, the CCP doesn't have a member of on the board of ByteDance, for instance. But in fact, if you read what Bloomberg reported, the member from the government is absolutely beholden to the Chinese Communist Party, so you can't separate it. So it becomes semantics and how it gets reported around the world, but those are the facts. In regarding companies who are headquartered in China or started in China.
Now, you mentioned how the Chinese regime will try and make sure these U.S. companies doing business inside China aren't spying on the Chinese citizens. That basically is the concern when it comes to TikTok, where American data is ending up in the hands of Beijing. Talk to us about ByteDance's surveillance capabilities. What is so concerning about this app in particular?
Well, it's not just ByteDance. Let's look at an app in general. Today's apps are basically legal malware. They enable the developer to conduct audio, video, and physical surveillance on the end user while data mining over 5,000 highly confidential data points associated with the end user's personal, business, medical, legal, employment, biometric, and location data, plus other sensitive user data. They can also collect the SMS messages from your phone, your emails, including attachments. They can collect your phone, your files. They can collect your photos, your videos. Anything that you store on the phone can be collected by an app. All you have to do to understand this is look up application permission, for Android, for instance. So you can look up application permissions for Android, application permissions for Windows through Microsoft support, and application permissions for Apple, and you'll see what the permission allows the app developer to do. So that validates how much information that these apps are collecting. So these apps, whether they're from China or not, are collecting your personal and your business information, posing massive privacy threats and security threats to the end user as well as the end user's employer. What the Supreme Court is doing is they're not only looking at TikTok as a threat, but if you read the ruling in detail, it's affecting a multiple number of apps that are developed in China that have been identified as a national security threat. So the ruling just doesn't impact TikTok, it's impacting other apps and platforms from China.
Now, when it comes to collecting that information that you're just talking about, TikTok, right, 170 million users in the U.S., reports are noting that that algorithm that makes it so addictive or, fun to use, depending on how you look at it, was actually a state secret under the Chinese Communist Party, and it's a different algorithm than the one that's deployed in China's own version of TikTok called Douyin, whereas TikTok isn't allowed inside China. Talk to us about what makes TikTok so addictive compared to, say, something like Instagram Reels that was trying to copy it?
Well, it's I would say that the Chinese app developers like ByteDance copied the addictive technology in U.S. apps. The addictive technology in U.S. apps have been featured in documentaries like the Netflix documentary The Social Dilemma, which is based on the addictive properties of social media and why social media is so addictive. Well, this goes back to what's called brain hijacking technology associated with manipulative advertising technology that's utilized to addict the end user to the platform so that they can sell targeted advertising. All of this ties back to the targeted advertising industry along with the global information trafficking industry. They're all tied together. So to get people to stay on the platform, to get more information, to sell more targeted ads, they have to make the apps as addictive as possible. And there's nothing more addictive than brain hijacking technology, which if you want to look at it, what is that exactly? It's a thumbs up that comes up on your app. It's balloons, it's confetti. Those are called social validation feedback loops, and they have a huge impact on the end user. They can also utilize it to manipulate the end user into taking an action they otherwise would not have taken. Like initially, this was for buying hamburgers, tennis shoes, music, and other consumer products. This technology was at the cornerstone of the Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal, in that the app was made addictive for the purpose of manipulating people to vote for a presidential or a Senate candidate, meaning that they now took addictive and manipulative technology and applied it to politics and other things. So now you can see regarding psychological warfare or tech-based hybrid warfare, how the Chinese military can utilize this technology to manipulate people who are on social media platforms.
Rexley, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you soon.